Gentlemen, what I'm about to share with you has huge spiritual, historical significance. So, things are about to ramp up over on the East Coast. Many of you know that these ICE um, protesters are coming up against these facilities, even over here on the West Coast. But things are about to get more heated because what's coming is now that Trump has gotten approval from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to grant National Guard into some of these states. I think there's going to be a significant output come April. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into, are we about to replay a biblical account? And can we make this connection with these no kings protesters as ancient Philistines? What? Everything is upside down and inside out. And you need to buckle your seatbelts because it's about to get pretty Trumpy. All right. So many of you know that Trump is getting ready to release a National Guard reaction force. Now, this comes to me today after learning about it earlier today, and well, actually yesterday, but comes in line with what I reported on Tuesday here in Oregon about our governor not liking Trump sending in the National Guard, right? And so what's interesting about this is I played that video of her interview, and she said that it would take her 72 hours to deploy National Guard if they were needed, but she admitted that she has the local law enforcement and to do her bidding, so she didn't really need them. But this is what's coming down from the Trump administration, and this is going to be happening all over the United States come April. And I'm thinking in every single state this is going to happen. So the NGRF is a state controlled rapid response force of soldiers and airmen organized under the National Guard Bureau. Every U.S. state, territory, and the District of Columbia maintains an NGRF for emergency response, civil protection, and homeland security missions. The NGRF is composed of volunteer soldiers and airmen drawn from existing National Guard units. They are structured as a temporary task force commanded by their home state governor unless federalized. Oh, well, we already know that over here in Oregon that our governor does not want to use them, but because they advocate for Antifa, um, I mean the local authorities advocate for Antifa. We don't need the National Guard because they've already chosen a side, right? Their mission is to provide a quick reaction capability to handle disturbances or emergencies before federal assets arrive. Typical deployment size include an initial element of 75 to 125 personnel ready within 8 hours. Oh, that's funny. She said 72, but I think this is more like what Trump would do. He would be able to accomplish these uh, achievements in this amount of hours, like it's outlining here. A follow-on element of up to 375 personnel ready within 24 hours. So twice as fast as what the governor says she can deploy them over here in Oregon. I don't know if that would be the same for every blue state, but nonetheless. NGRFs specialize in domestic security and civil disturbance operations, including site and infrastructure security, roadblocks and checkpoints, protection of critical infrastructure and state assets, assistance to law enforcement in riot control and protest containment, personnel security and force protection. They are equipped with non lethal operations, carrying personnel protective gear, helmets, face shields, body armor, and non lethal weapons such as tasers, uh, OC spray, and riot batons. Units are logistically self sustained for up to 72 hours. As of October 2025, several legal and political developments have centered on the NGRF, particularly in Oregon. Oh, here we go. Oregon's Attorney General Dan Rayfield filed for a temporary restraining order to block President Donald Trump's federalization of 200 Oregon National Guard members for deployment in Portland under a September 28th memorandum for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. A federal judge granted and later extended this restraining order, blocking any National Guard deployment to Oregon. But now, on October 21st, the Trump administration filed to dissolve the remaining TRO after the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned a previous restraining order, siding partially with the federal government. So now that's completely been dissolved, and he's allowed to send them in. The term National Guard restraining force appears to stem from the ongoing legal clash between federal and state authorities over control and deployment, particularly regarding domestic protest management in Portland. However, the recognized military designation remains National Guard Reaction Force per official National Guard Bureau fact statistics from August 2025. The NGRF employs a range of non lethal equipment designed to de escalate situations, crowd control, and protect property while minimizing harm. These tools are oriented toward domestic response operations where maintaining order and protecting civil rights are critical. Core non lethal equipment: personal protective gear, helmets, face shields, body armor, body shields, and shin guards. Counter personnel equipment: tasers, oleoresin capsium, OC spray, or in other words, OC spray. I don't know what. I wonder if that's tear gas. I'm not familiar with the acronym there. And riot batons, gas masks used in a crowd control scenarios involving tear gas and smoke agents, which we have already seen are taking place here at the ICE facility here in Portland. Protective gloves and riot suits for hand limb protection during restrained crowd and engagement. The Department of Defense's non lethal weapons program further supports Guard units with 12 gauge shotgun beanbag rounds and 40 millimeter sponge grenades for compliance and distance deterrence. Diversionary devices for controlling aggressive crowds, in other words, flashbang grenades, vehicle arresting barriers, and spike strips for checkpoint operations. Modular crowd control munitions for area denial, high intensity lights and bullhorns for communication and disorientation in tense situations, portable restraint systems for temporary detainment of violent individuals. Each NGRF platoon is designed to be self sustaining for up to 72 hours, equipped for both personal protection and rapid de escalation in civil disturbance and homeland defense missions. Their operational kit ensures a graduated response, allowing commanders to escalate force deliberately based on threat levels and mission directives. The NGRF is a specialized quick response unit composed of soldiers and airmen from existing National Guard units. Its primary purpose is to provide immediate organized response to emergencies and security incidents within the United States for federal forces before federal forces become available. The mission of the NGRF is to support civil authorities and protect vital assets during domestic emergencies and unrest. And why am I going all through this? Because, like I said, this is about to ramp up, and we're starting to see it all over the United States. We have judges trying to put in orders like they just did in Chicago, where one judge said that ICE does not have, according to his rule, the ability to arrest secondary immigrants if they were to raid a place and find the particular individual that they were looking for. They can't arrest a secondary immigrant if they are found while raiding for that certain individual. We got LA coming out and saying that they're now going to put into effect a tracking system for ICE agents. And I want to share this video with you. It's going through its rounds right now all over social media. It's pretty intense. Let's check this video out right here. Here we go.
While Kristi Noem sends her agents, deputizes ICE and other law enforcement to terrorize communities, Democrats are going to record and create an investigative unit here to ensure that in Los Angeles, we look into every single brutal misconduct that ICE is committing.
All right, so you see that happening. They're trying to set that up in LA to thwart the ICE agents, right, from coming in and doing their raids for illegal immigrants. But Portland isn't the only place, and LA isn't the only place that this is happening, and we're starting to see it all over the place, and this is going to get pretty intense. But here's another video here that I wanted to show you guys that just happened over in New York, and I'm going to pick on New York City pretty particularly today because I believe that Zohran Mamdani is going to win the mayor's seat over there. And there's a specific strategy that this is coming into that we need to be aware of, especially in the church. But here, check out this video here. And we can see that it's happening over in New York too.
Meanwhile, protests erupting as ICE conducted a raid in New York City's Chinatown, cracking down on illegal street vendors. The hot topic of immigration enforcement now set to take center stage at the final debate in the race for New York City mayor, and that is tonight. Alexis McAdams is live on Canal Street in Lower Manhattan, where the chaos unfolded. Hi, Alexis.
Hi, Dana. Yeah, it looks a lot different right here in New York City this morning, but where I'm standing on this sidewalk is right near New York City's Chinatown. For decades, there's been a problem with people selling counterfeit purses, fake designer items here on these streets, but they're not here today after the federal agents came right here to the Big Apple and made at least 9 arrests of people who they say were in the country illegally. Watch. Recording there on their cell phones as agents with ICE, FBI, ATF, and other federal law enforcement agencies pulled up yesterday afternoon. It's part of a crackdown on illegal street vending, according to DHS. So when the feds started to make arrests, protesters stepped in, chasing agents to the nearby federal immigration building. We've seen protests there before, and it happened again. DHS telling me that the migrants arrested are all from West Africa and say at least one had a final order of removal and prior crimes, including counterfeit. But the protesters didn't want those people to leave the country, yelling at the agents.
Notice she said that most of the immigrants that they were after were from West Africa.
To take off their masks as they blocked ICE in the city streets. DHS says a group of protesters with criminal histories were also arrested.
Rise out now! Rise out now!
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm Sarah, and I'm an attorney
commercial
here at Atticus. It's no.
And that's just a taste of what we saw. It kept going for hours. Immigration is a hot topic in New York City, a hot topic again tonight, we expect, for the debate for the New York City mayor's race. And both the Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo are slamming this raid. Mamdani calls this an aggressive and reckless raid on immigrant street vendors, writing an X in part. Once again, the Trump administration chooses authoritarian theatrics to create fear, not safety. It must stop. Cuomo also weighed in, saying that the raid, Dana, is an abuse of federal power by the Trump administration. More about fear than justice, more about politics than safety. Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa hasn't weighed in yet. I reached out to their team, but in the past he did distance himself from some of Trump's immigration policies, saying he only supports its efforts to deport criminals. Back out here live, the question again this morning from ICE that I asked was, how did these people get into the country, Dana? They told me multiple of them entered in 2023 right at our southern border. So we'll keep an eye on it, Dana.
All right, Alexis, thank you so much. And Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons is here. So many questions to ask you. Thanks for being with us today. I want to show you some New York City officials slamming this ICE raid in Chinatown.
There is no excuse for sending military-style vehicles.
Notice Brad Lander, Democrat, New York City comptroller.
And a national law enforcement response for street vendors.
This wasn't about public safety. This was about
Jumaine Williams, Democrat, New York City public advocate.
targeting communities. None of this is about public safety. It is about fear and chaos.
We wholeheartedly reject the violence that
Alexa Aviles, Democrat, New York City council member.
ICE is bringing to our city. Subjecting street vendors to this kind of violence is deplorable.
So, sir, let me ask you this. This has been a problem for a long time.
Deplorable. Isn't it Hillary Clinton that used to call us the deplorables?
Now, is it that you have the resources or the means, or did you have intelligence that said, okay, well, these guys, we know that some of them were here illegally?
Yeah, Dana, thanks for having me. Yeah, so it's a bit of both, right? Obviously, we have to build a criminal case when we're doing such things as counterfeiting some of the purses that were stolen, sold on the street. But a lot of the shop owners down there have complained for a long time. And again, I wish those elected officials and the city officials actually waited for us to do media and press, because the 9 that were arrested, their rap sheets are long. Right. Forgery, possession of drugs, drug trafficking, robbery, assault. So these are criminal aliens that were being targeted. Again, we do these based on criminal intelligence, and that's what we had. And, if you look at the video, everything was fine with the officers talking to those individuals and making those arrests until violent protesters showed up.
That was my second question, which is, were those protesters was it just organic? They just happened to be there, or did they have some sort of heads up, do you think?
Notice he said violent protesters. We're going to get into this here in a second, because I believe these No Kings protesters are none other than modern day Philistines. Yes, I'm going to make a biblical connection here. Let's continue.
Honestly, we're still looking at both angles of that. Obviously, that protesters came up really quick and fast, so we have to look and see what kind of situation that led to. But that's one of the reasons why you saw that Bearcat, the special response team vehicle, out there, because we know everywhere we go, because of elected officials' rhetoric against violence on ICE, we have these protests. So what I'd like to ask the city officials are, they talk about street vendors, but that's illegal, and they've been calling on the city to do something about it. But again, we arrested criminally illegal aliens that have horrible rap sheets. So is that the people they want to protect? I don't think so.
Sir, we have an election here in less than 2 weeks. Is this just the first bite of the apple, so to speak, on what people in New York can expect to see?
Well, I think for the people in New York, they're going to see ICE and our other federal partners do the law enforcement mission, right? This wasn't something that just organically happened overnight. We decided to go hit Canal Street. With any criminal investigation, you have to build up intelligence. You have to work with sources. You have to go ahead and have the right evidence and work with the U.S. Attorney's Office. But you will see an increase in ICE arrests because there are so many criminally illegal aliens that have been released in New York specifically, and especially that are being harbored in New York from the lack of cooperation there in New York City. So you will see us making those criminal arrests.
And there's a reason for that. There's a conglomerate of illegal immigrants, because they're using these people as a distraction, and you'll see why here biblically here in a minute, because I think we're about to relive a biblical account.
To make New York safe again. But I will tell you that it's definitely intelligence driven. It's not random. We're just not pulling people off the street. There was a specific reason based on criminal intelligence and criminal activity that we showed up on Canal Street.
All right, let me also then take you to Los Angeles and the vehicles that were rammed. Let me just get your take on it before we show anything that the Democrats were saying. I mean, a TikToker who obviously he wants attention, and he certainly got it.
Yeah, it kind of boggles my mind as a career law enforcement officer. If you're in the country legally and doing illegal things, why you want to broadcast yourself on any type of social media platform. But, to your point earlier that you guys had made, this person received an award from the city of Los Angeles for documenting ICE law enforcement activities.
Insane.
And you can see that there are so many elected officials that call for resisting ICE, pushing back, defying ICE, that almost daily we have 2 to 3 of these ramming incidents, which is a deadly force. You know, and it's putting our officers and agents at risk. And even though we're at 1,000% assaults on officers, I guarantee it's more than that, because every day my office is constantly dealing with reports from the field about these criminally illegal aliens either fighting with officers, trying to ram vehicles, or even worse, you have U.S. citizens that are involving themselves in a law enforcement situation that's just totally unacceptable.
Okay, so this is what we're hearing from some of the Democratic members of Congress and local government. AOC, the flyers from her office on how to evade and resist arrest. Karen Bass, the mayor of L.A., order to bolster the city response on immigration enforcement. Also, Gavin Newsom there.
And now they're putting out their app so that they can target and locate ICE agents in LA with Karen Bass.
On a flyer in California related to a similar deal here. Rob Garcia is a Democratic congressman from California. He said this about the ICE tracking site on Tuesday in LA.
I shared this with the mayor.
Yep,
Over the course of the next
this.
couple of weeks, the Oversight Committee will be launching on their website a master ICE tracker, where we're going to be essentially tracking every single instance that we can verify that the community will be able to send us information on.
So what is your message for Congressman Garcia? And I guess in a bigger sense, this is starting, it's going to come to a head very soon. Not just from those on the street and the members of ICE, but members of government in a significant way on big positions. Go ahead.
No, Bill, I think what I'd say to him is the fact that if he wants to put a target on ICE agents' back, so be it. But he shouldn't hide behind the fact that he wants to make his community safe. We've already seen from the Dallas shooting that apps like those are like giving a map to a hitman. So he's not protecting his community. He's putting the men and women in law enforcement at risk. Do they track the DEA? Do they track the FBI? They don't. So I really wish elected officials would talk to us and see exactly who we're arresting, see the criminal history, see the public safety stats we're throwing out. But the men and women of ICE are being targeted for just doing their law enforcement mission, and it's coming from elected officials, and it has to stop.
Todd Lyons, thank you so much. It was a really good point about cars being used as weapons. It's very dangerous. Thank you.
Sir.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, so this is all for a Muslim takeover of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, because this is asymmetric warfare. We're talking about terrorism and cyber attacks, because a direct conflict with the US would be a losing battle militarily for them, and they wouldn't be able to come at us in that way. So now they've infiltrated us in the United States. It's not just about the illegals coming over our southern border. It's the fact that so many Muslims have come into our country and are now taking over governmental positions all over the United States. And yes, I did an episode on this a few weeks ago, but now it's gotten even worse, and I'm about to show you all of that. But let me finish up on this NGRF stuff. So they provide rapid response support to governors or combatant commanders in times of crisis. So as far as federalization goes, that is ICE, because ICE is a federal agency, right? So these National Guard reaction force troops are going to be coming in to assist them, because they're all going to be federalized. It's not quite like a what's the order? Militia, you know what I mean? For the president to call in militias to protect the United States. These can actually, these are our own troops, and I'm gonna tell you how you can get involved at the end here. But they assist law enforcement in several disturbance control and security operations, protect critical infrastructure, governmental facilities, and state and national assets, maintain public safety and stability through controlled use of non-lethal capabilities. In short, the NGRF exists to bridge the gap between the local authorities and federal military resources. ensuring that states can independently respond to crises ranging from natural disasters to riots or terrorism. I just mentioned that. Each U.S. state, territory, and the District of Columbia maintains its own NGRF unit. These units deploy an initial force of 75 to 125 personnel within 8 hours, like I said, up to 375 within 24, and are typically temporary task force, not standing units, drawn from combat arms and security elements. Well, they're going to be used for more than that because I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we are at war because they're literally trying to take our coastal infrastructure and turn it over to Muslim jihadists. They operate primarily under the command of the state governors, but may serve under federal authority when activated under Title 32 or Title 10 of the U.S. Code, which is what Trump is going to do. Let's see. NGRF's capabilities are structured around graduated response and support to civilian agencies, site and perimeter security for key infrastructure or federal property, ICE facilities, roadblocks and checkpoints to control, including the use of non-lethal tactics, force protection and personnel security for government or military personnel, command and control integration with joint task force, state and local emergency operations centers. The NGRF embodies the National Guard's dual mission, acting as both state-controlled militia and a Federal Reserve component. It ensures that governors can respond swiftly to emergencies while maintaining close coordination with federal agencies when required, except when our governors are ideologically opposed, right? Because that's what's happening. In modern contexts, NGRFs have been tasked not just with disaster relief, but also with homeland defense and public order missions, particularly during large protests and domestic unrest. Now, I want to connect this biblically to the story King Saul and King David, right? Why? Because in 1 Samuel chapter 6 through 8, we see the account of when the people reject God as king and they ask Samuel to bring forth a king for the people, just like every other nation has a king, right? Because they don't want to obey God. Isn't that what we're seeing right now with the No Kings protesters, that they don't want to, they say no kings, but what they really mean is they don't want our president because they view him as a king. They want their own. And I'm gonna tie this in. This is pretty, the alignment here with this story is pretty crazy with all of the parallels that you're going to see here when I connect them, because it's not a direct replay, but there's a lot of coincidences in here that I think we're going to see come into play here in the United States in the near future with how this is going to play out with these protests and raids, right, on both sides. So First Samuel chapter 8, 4 through 9, and I think this is a prophetic warning right here. So all of the leaders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah, and this is starting in verse 4. They say to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." See, they want a king like all the other nations. But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king." Pretty reminiscent right there. "As they have done from the day I brought them out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights." Ooh, is that a foretelling of what's actually happening right now? And I think this is pretty significant. And I'm going to equate them as Philistines because you think about King Saul, he actually turned away from the principles of God and ended up trying to prove himself to the people as a good king and did not do what God had told him to go do through Samuel. He didn't do it to its full fruition. But then they came up because Saul had lost his anointing. Then David was anointed to become king, right? And he was anointed so in secrecy because David was one of the sons that was chosen, and he appeared to be the weakest, right, of all of the sons, and he was anointed anyways. But he came out of this, and what is the connection here when I read through this story is David's battle with the Philistines. Why? Because the Philistines came and they took over certain cities in Israel, and they were actually port cities in the Mediterranean area. They were called Levant cities back then in the ancient days, right? And they were important because of their travel hubs and their trade in those cities. And they took them over, and then they came up against Saul in his control over other cities because they wanted to take over those cities. And so we run into Goliath, but we see that David defeats Goliath, and he has the victory there because none of Saul's soldiers want to actually go up against Goliath. You see in the parallels here? You see in the parallels with these no kings protesters going on? So in the Bible, there was no single king of the Philistines. Now, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Instead, the Philistines were a confederation of 5 city states. And the Bible mentions different rulers from these cities at various times. The most notable Philistine rulers are Abimelech and Achish. Abimelech, a title, not a name. What other organization can we draw a parallel there that has the same thing? How about Antifa, who is the leader or idea, a title nonetheless, of this group that supposedly doesn't exist, right? It's just an idea, is what the Democrats say. A title, not a name. Abimelech appears in the book of Genesis during the time of both Abraham and Isaac, serving as the name or title for the king of Gerar. Oh, so they don't want a king because they already have a no-name king. One of the Philistine cities. Encounter with Abraham, a Philistine king named Abimelech is mentioned in Genesis chapters 20 through 21 when he interacts with Abraham. Then a later king, also named Abimelech, has an encounter with Isaac, his son, appears in Genesis chapter 26, interacting with Isaac. Achish, king of Gath. Achish was the Philistine king of Gath during the time of King Saul and King David of Israel. That's the city where Goliath came out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our Goliath happening in the United States of America right now. When David was fleeing from Saul, he twice sought refuge with Achish in Gath. The second time, Achish allowed David and his men to settle in the town of Ziklag. Referred to as Abimelech, the title of Psalm 34 refers to Achish as Abimelech. So both of these supposed king names are referred in different places as the same name, Abimelech, which is not a name, it's actually a title, right? And what is it with all of these A names? We got Akish, Abimelech, Antifa, which further supports the idea that Abimelech was a royal title rather than a personal name for all Philistine kings. The five lords of the Philistines, Joshua 13:3 specifies that the Philistine territory was ruled by five lords or kings, each governing one of the principal cities of the Confederacy that these cities were. And we're going to make a connection here with what's going on in the United States, especially on the East Coast, because particularly of the Mamdani campaign. And I think he's going to win out because I think we're seeing in real time a replay of this scenario, not to the exact, but very closely. Now, listen, these cities were Gaza. Hello. We still have a conflict going over in Israel right now. A parallel symbolic. Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath, 5 cities. The 5 lords of the Philistines took over those 5 cities. Ekron. Now, I want to draw some parallels here. So, either I think Ekron could symbolically be New York City or maybe Newark, New Jersey. And I'm going to tell you why here in a minute. Ekron was a major Philistine city-state that was a strategic and economic powerhouse within the Philistine Confederacy. Archaeological findings at the site, now known as Tel Mikne, or Mikne, have confirmed its importance as one of the 5 principal cities alongside Gaza. And guess what they called the 5 cities back in the day? They called it Pentapolis. Now, if any of you guys listen to the prophetic space, there's some words being thrown around about certain prophets saying they see 10 cities here in America that are going to be burning all at once, and they call it Acropolis. And this was called Pentapolis. Interesting. Ashkelon and Ashdod and Gath, strategic and their strategic and military significance, they were border cities located near the boundary between Philistine territory and the Israelite kingdoms of Judah and Dan. Ekron's strategic position made it a frequent point of military conflict. Military campaigns, Ekron is mentioned in biblical accounts of the Philistines' wars with the Israelites. In the story of David and Goliath, the Israelites chased the Philistines to the gates of Ekron after David's victory. And we're going to draw some more parallels here of how I think that God's drawing out for us what we can do here in the United States in order to thwart their takeover, because it's drawn out. Literally in the Word of God. This is pretty cool. And that's in 1 Samuel 17:52. Assyrian conquest. It was also involved in conflicts with foreign empires. In the 8th century BC, after revolting against Assyria, Ekron was conquered by the Assyrian king Sennacherib. The city's king Padi was eventually restored to his throne by the Assyrians. Economic importance. See, so we got switching of kings there, and it's all symbolic of exactly what they're trying to do here within our own United States in a little bit different way, but there's serious connections and parallels there. Ekron was olive oil production in the 7th century BC under Assyrian rule. Ekron became the largest olive oil production center in the ancient Near East. Excavations have uncovered over 100 large olive presses, indicating the city produced hundreds of tons of olive oil annually for both domestic use and international trade. One of the problems with Israel today, and so many are fighting over AIPAC, right? Because it's an oil producer out of Israel. That's one of the things that they fight about over there in the Middle East. How crazy is it that the parallel with Ekron and the fighting between Israel is because And the Philistines took it over because of their large olive oil, symbolic, but a close parallel. Um, they had tons of olive oil annually for both domestic use and international trade. So it was also a trade hub. The city's extensive olive oil industry cemented its role as a major hub for commerce, trading with regions like Egypt and Mesopotamia. It was also a religious center. Temple of Beelzebub. Ekron was the home of a major sanctuary dedicated to the deity Beelzebub, which translated to Lord of the Flies. King Ahaziah of Israel, another A name. All these A kings going corrupt. What's going on? Was condemned by the prophet Elijah for consulting this god to inquire about his illness. 2 Kings chapter 1. Ark of the Covenant. In one of the most famous biblical episodes, Ekron was the last Philistine city to possess the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark brought great devastation upon the inhabitants who, fearing for their lives, returned it to the Israelites. Archaeological confirmation. Ekron royal I can't even say that word. Royal dedicatory. There it is. Ekron royal dedicatory inscription. An inscription found in 1996 confirmed the site of McNee, there's that word again, as ancient Ekron. So geographically over there in Israel, we have archaeological findings now that mark Tel McNee as Ekron. It names the city and lists 5 of its rulers, 2 of whom, Padi and his sons, and his son Akasu, which is translated to Akish, go figure, are also mentioned in Neo-Assyrian records. Evidence of destruction, Ekron was violently destroyed by the Neo-Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II in 604 BC. Layers of ash and debris found in excavations corroborate this event, which ultimately led to the city's abandonment. So it was burned. And if you go in and you do some research here, like I did, you will also find that Nebuchadnezzar II also burned Ashkelon. Now, that's going to be important here in a minute, because I think we can connect Pentopolis with this prophetic word of Acropolis, and we can dial in where I think these fires are going to start, and it may start over there in New York City. So I want to get into, well, let's go with New York City and draw some parallels here with why I think it's Ekron or Newark. And we'll go into New York City and Newark. So New York City holds immense importance due to its strategic position, economic power, and cultural influence. This prominence also makes it a target, leaving it vulnerable to a range of threats, including terrorism and economic shifts. Now, I was telling you that this is an asymmetric warfare. These Muslims are not coming over and they're taking over governmental positions. And we have proof of that coming up here. I'll show you. It's growing exponentially, and people are just giving way as voters in our city states and handing over these positions to Muslim jihadists, radical Islamic believers. And case in point, the next one to come up is Zohran Mamdani, and I think he's going to win, because this is the exact parallel that we're watching right before our eyes with the story of David. But we have our King David. Everybody equates Trump to King Cyrus, but I believe he is also our King David, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. Strategic and military importance of New York City. Geographic advantage. Historically, New York's location at the mouth of the Hudson River has made it a crucial commercial and transportation hub, connecting the Atlantic Ocean to the North American interior. Now, if you realize that all of these illegals came in through our southern border, and we have these jihadists that are taking over each of our city states, sanctuary cities nonetheless. They need a way for more immigrants to come in, since our president has shut down our border. And I think strategically, this is why they're going after our coastal cities. That's huge, because we're going to be, come April, when I heard that Trump is going to have all of these NGRFs deployed, we're going to be at war. This is what I think is going to happen. New York's location at the mouth of the Hudson River has made it a crucial commercial transportation hub connecting the Atlantic Ocean to the North American interior. This strategic positioning made the city a priority target during the Revolutionary War. It's the gateway to the nation. See, they're going to come in, and these Palestinian Arabs that are coming over here and trying to take over, they're going to do exactly what they did over in Gaza. They're going to go out for blood, and they're going to destroy our cities. They're going to try to crush us economically. This is what they're coming for. As a premier harbor, it has long served as a key entry and exit point for goods and people, reinforcing its role in trade and logistics. As a global icon of capitalism, what is it that the Democrats hate? They hate capitalism. What is it that they're trying to promote is a communistic ideological belief system. That's why the left has gone so extreme. This is what they are after. This makes it a potential target for terrorism, as seen in the attacks on the World Trade Center back in '93 and in 2001. Military infrastructure, the Port of New York and New Jersey, as I pointed out. Where'd I go here? A major economic engine also serves a military function, handling cargo and providing a base for the U.S. Coast Guard. Economic importance. It's the financial epicenter for the entire United States. New York City is the world's most economically powerful city and the premier global financial hub. It is a home to Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ. Headquarters for corporation, the city hosts the headquarters of dozens of Fortune 500 companies and is a top center for finance, technology, media, and other industries. Diverse economy. While finance is crucial, New York's economy is highly diversified with key sectors including life sciences, healthcare, real estate, and creative industries like advertising and publishing. International trade, the Port of New York and New Jersey, there it is again, is one of the busiest on the East Coast, solidifying the city's role in international commerce. One of the things that the Philistines did biblically and why they went after those cities is because they were important religious hubs too, because they wanted to eradicate the Jewish people just like they still want to do today. While New York City does not have a single religious significance like Vatican City or Jerusalem, its importance lies in its incredible diversity and role as a center for religious freedom and pluralism. New York is a global hub of religious diversity with hundreds of different faiths and denominations represented with its boroughs. This includes a significant number of religiously unaffiliated residents, as well as sizable Black, Protestant, Hispanic, Catholic, and Jewish communities. Historically, the city has been a sanctuary for prosecuted religious groups from around the world, contributing to its religious mosaic. Iconic religious institutions like St. Patrick's Cathedral and Congregation Sereth Israel, the oldest Jewish congregation in the United States. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Go figure. There's a Jewish stronghold in New York City. That's an interesting parallel. Are located in the city. Terrorism. As a high-profile target and a major hub for global commerce, New York remains highly vulnerable to terrorist attacks, which have been carried out against it multiple times. Let's see. Over-reliance on sectors like finance and high-end real estate makes the city's economy vulnerable to market downturns and shifts in global financial stability. Challenges such as I don't want to talk about that. Social political issues. All right, let's talk about Newark. And I'm going to tie these in here in a minute because all of these cities have been taken over by either direct Muslim mayors or advocates for Muslims. It's pretty crazy. Newark is New Jersey's largest economic city and is located just a short distance from New York City, approximately 8 miles west of Manhattan, with some areas only a 20-minute train ride away. Its economy is driven by its role as a major transportation hub, there it is again, with Newark Liberty International Airport and Port Newark, as well as being the headquarters for several large companies. Newark is the largest economic city. It is a principal city of the New York metropolitan area and the largest city in New Jersey by population. It is a major transportation and economic hub, home to Newark Liberty International Airport, which offers global access, and Port Newark, the second busiest seaport in North America. Major corporations like Prudential Financial and Public Service Enterprise Group, PSEG, have their headquarters in Newark. Proximity to New York City. Newark is located about 8 miles west of Manhattan. And I want to draw this parallel because if you look into this study, you will find that Ekron was 6 miles away from Gath, where David went up against Goliath, 6 miles away. And he goes into Gath later after he defeats Goliath in Gath, and strategically builds a stronghold there in Ziklag, right? Because these cities were taken over by Philistines. Interesting. 6 miles away, those two cities, and here we see that Newark is 8 miles away from New York City. And I think this is a good parallel to draw when we come into this conflict here early next year. I think God is going to draw out this, and we've already started it, as I just laid out for you with the NGRF. Trump is on it, but we need to pray this through, and I think the church can get involved. But let's continue. It is a convenient commute option, with some train routes taking as little as 20 minutes to reach New York City. The city's strong public transit network, including the PATH train, makes it an ideal choice for commuters. Now listen to this. The Philistines took control of the 5 cities of Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron, through military dominance and aggressive raids against the Israelites. Now, like I drew out, Islam cannot directly attack the United States on a military front because they don't have the power to challenge the American military. It would be impossible. So they've infiltrated us and they're trying to take us down from the inside. This is asymmetric warfare. Terrorism and cyber warfare is what's going to be happening. Mark my words. It's going to get a lot worse. Through military dominance and aggressive raids against the Israelites, their advanced weaponry, particularly the use of iron, a superiority over the Israelites' bronze, gave them a significant military advantage, allowing them to defeat the Israelites in battles and enforce their control over various towns. The biblical account also suggests that God allowed the Philistines to gain power at times due to Israelite sin, leading to Philistine occupation and even capture of the Ark of the Covenant. And ladies and gentlemen, truth is not trending, it's eternal. Okay, so this is why us as individuals in the United States, just as I've talked on my other shows, that it's time for us to repent, because we don't blur the line here. We draw the red line, right? That's the name of this show. That's why I'm doing this. Leading to Philistine occupation and even capture of the Ark of the Covenant. The Philistines possessed superior iron-based weaponry, which was a distinct advantage over the bronze weapons used by the Israelites at the time. They engaged in numerous conflicts and invasions against the Israelites, who were less technologically advanced and less militarily organized. And what are we seeing? We're seeing these hundreds of No Kings protesters turning up at ICE facilities where there's a limited amount of federal ICE agents at any given time at these facilities. Why? Because they're out doing raids most of the time, right? They're trying to get a hold of these illegal immigrants and get them out of our country. So they're vulnerable. These people are doing the exact same thing. At various times, Philistine garrisons were established in Israelite territory, and they even prohibited the Israelites from sharpening their own iron tools, creating a situation of oppression and military control. What do you think is going to happen when Zohran Mamdani takes over as mayor? He's already talking about government-controlled grocery stores. When that's been a proven tactic, that doesn't work. We're going to start losing our produce and supply, okay? So this suffering is coming down via Muslim jihadist takeover. Mark my words. This is a type of weaponry. Their ideological beliefs are actually going to destroy our city from within. That's what's going to happen. And once they're all conglomerated, trust me, they're trying. It's going to get even worse, because it's not just New York. It's happening in Massachusetts, in Virginia, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia. I'm going to show you here in a minute. Specific events such as the Battle of Aphek, where the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant, highlight their military success against the Israelites and their ability to conquer and occupy Israelite cities. According to the biblical narrative, periods of Philistine oppression were sometimes permitted by God due to Israel's disobedience, which led to their repeated defeat and the Philistines' rise to power. So we have a choice to make here, America, to align with God and His Word so that He can rescue us, because that's what this is going to take. So I want to show this. Let's see, which one is it here? Okay. I want to show this article here of the mayor of Newark. And you guys should all recognize this guy, because he was recently involved in a people's raid on an ICE facility, and he got in legal trouble. I believe it was Alina Habba that was going to try to bring a case against him, but then ended up dropping up the case. And we're talking here about the mayor of Newark, who is running for governor and has been endorsed by a Muslim advocacy group for governor, none other than Ras Baraka. So check out this article. Muslim advocacy groups endorse Baraka for governor on February 7th. 3 organizations announced their support for the progressive mayor. So we got all of these progressives are actually simping for these Muslim groups and may even be Muslim themselves. I haven't found any direct connection with this guy specifically being identified as a Muslim, but there you have it. Let's scroll down just a little bit more here. A coalition of Muslim advocacy groups endorsed Newark Mayor Ras Baraka for governor on Monday. That was back in February. Gage Action Council on America Islamic Relations, Action New Jersey, and New Jersey Muslim Civic Coalition. ACA, look at all of these Muslim organizations, people. Don't tell me this stuff isn't going on. Activate announced their endorsement of the Democrat in a press release. The group said Barack is the candidate most likely to effectively champion economic growth, equity, and public safety. Now, we don't have to get into all of that, but I wanted to show you that he particularly is the mayor of Newark and running for governor. Now, we know and we see that Zohran Mamdani is trying to take over as mayor in New York City, right? So they're running all over the place. Let's get back into the David story. While living in Gath, King David did not directly take back territory from the Philistines, but instead conducted raids. What do we see President Trump doing right now with ICE, the federal ICE agents, and now he's going to have the NGRF. Conducted raids on other groups like the Amalekites and the Jeshurites. He deceived King Achish of Gath by lying about his targets, making Achish believe that David was attacking Israel's southern enemies instead of his own people, and he killed everyone in the villages he attacked to ensure secrecy. Now, I don't believe, because we have a president that's willing to stand up for America first, that we don't have to go in and lie. We don't have to go in and pretend. We can just enforce it, right? But nonetheless, this threat is still at our door, and we're going to have to face it. David pretended to be a loyal ally to Achish, the king of Gath. He lied about the targets of his raids, telling Achish he was attacking people in the Negev. That's the desert. While in reality, he was attacking people who lived in the south of Judah. David and his men attacked and plundered the Geshurites, the Girzites, and Amalekites, ensuring that no witnesses could report his true actions to Achish. So David did it by deception. He left no one alive to tell the story, stating that he did so to prevent Achish from learning the truth. Strategic gains. The raids allowed David to build up his strength and resources and gain experience in warfare while living in Philistine territory. So these places are going to be are taken over by Muslim activists in our governmental seats and offices. So to me, this is what is lined out biblically that we should be doing, and we should keep hitting the ground until we take it back. We cannot stop. We have to do what David did and chase these people to the gates of Ekron, just like David did, right? Get them out of our country. David's time among the Philistines gave him insight into their military patterns, which would be useful in his battles for becoming king. Now, I want to bring to the forefront something I heard this morning, and Sebastian Gorka was on Glenn Beck's show, and he came out and he was talking about how he's working for the administration in counterterrorism, and they have what are called red what did he call them? Red affiliates or red people that go in and they go in and they're taught to think like the enemy. So he said that he couldn't reveal all of the classified stuff, but rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, we have people within our government going in and infiltrating these NGOs that are financially supporting these No Kings riots and stuff like that, to learn how to think like them so that we can overcome them, just like Antifa was doing to the MAGA crowd, right? They became one of us so that they could learn our strategy. So Um, Now, I believe that New York City or Newark is going to be the biggest downfall in collaboration for the East Coast strategically for this Muslim takeover. But just like in the ancient days, the Philistines took over 5 cities. And so I did a little bit of research here, and I think the 5 cities that are directly connected, because New York City is our financial hub, right? It's the biggest city in the United States for a lot of things. And this is their last mark to take over. And I think they're going to get it. But in parallel with the ancient cities, I did some research here, and I think the 5 cities on the East Coast, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other cities in the United States that they're trying to take over right now. And let me bring this up before I get into the 5 cities. This here in particular is a meet and greet for all of the Georgia Muslim people running for office. Take a look at that, ladies and gentlemen. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and a Muslim candidate for governor. This is no joke. They're going after our coastal cities on purpose. That's why Portland indirectly is also a hub for Antifa here on the West Coast. This is pretty crazy. So the 5 cities I think are Boston, Newark, Philadelphia, and Stamford and they're historically and economically important cities in the United States, each with distinct strategic roles. Their importance, vulnerabilities, and role in American history have evolved significantly over time. Let's start with Boston. Strategic and military importance. Boston is connected to the Revolutionary War. It was a key focal point during the American Revolution. The Boston Tea Party and the battles of Lexington and Concord marked the beginning of the war, and the city was the site of a critical siege. Today, Boston's strategic importance is tied to its status as a major port and a hub for advanced technology and military research. Its military assets include installations like Hanscom Air Force Base and the headquarters for Army and Navy recruiting. What did I tell you? Asymmetrical. Do you think that these people are going to take over their government roles and not know the city's strategies militarily? They're going to gain access to all of our intelligence within a city state. Not federally, but in the city. Economic importance. As the leading port in New England, Boston thrived on trade with European and Caribbean markets. Boston's economy is a global powerhouse driven by a highly skilled workforce and its status as a center for higher education, biotechnology, life sciences, finance, and venture capital. Religious importance. It's important to tie these all in, right? So we can draw the parallels of the biblical story and how it's lining out here in the United States. Boston was founded by Puritan colonists seeking religious freedom in the 17th century. See, if we're taken over by Sharia law in the United States, all of the stuff we were founded on goes away. It was the heart of Puritan religious life and had a significant influence on colonial American society. While it no longer holds the same religious dominance, Boston remains a city with a rich, diverse religious landscape, including influential Catholic, Jewish, and other communities. Boston's reliance on a knowledge-based economy and high skill labor makes it vulnerable to shifts in federal funding and immigration policies. Yeah, well, from our side, that's good strategically. As a coastal city, Boston is highly vulnerable to climate change threats and including rising sea levels and extreme weather events. Okay, extreme weather events. So New York City is vulnerable to that same thing too. Let's see here. So Boston is got a Taiwanese mayor by the name of Michelle Wu. Y'all may remember her. She's not directly a Muslim, but it's said that she has Catholic ties, but she also is an advocate for and a simp for Muslims. Check this out.
Assalamu alaikum and Eid Mubarak, Boston. Eid al-Adha is an opportunity to celebrate the spirit of sacrifice and community. And it is that same spirit of community that drives our work to make Boston a home for everyone. We're building community in our neighborhoods by creating the most affordable housing in a generation, placing more young people in summer jobs than ever before, and helping small businesses in every neighborhood open their doors. And Sunday, June 8th, we're hosting our Eid al-Adha festival at the Bruce Bowling Building in the heart of Roxbury. Thanks to our Muslim Employee Resource Group at the city, we'll have everything from crafts and activities, food and performances, to supports and resources. We hope you'll join us for a day of joy and community. And to those who traveled to Mecca, congratulations on your Hajj. Eid Mubarak.
Close.
Congratulations. Hold on. Let's see. So she said, congratulations on Mecca, huh? That's exactly what the Muslims do. They bow 5 times a day in prayer. I'm sure you've seen the videos of Michigan where they're doing that out openly in the streets, right? So Newark, I showed you Ras Baraka. Strategic and military importance. During the American Revolution, Newark was a strategic crossroads, experiencing attacks from British and Loyalist forces. Today, Newark's strategic importance is defined by its logistics and transportation infrastructure. It is home to Port Newark Elizabeth Marine Terminal, one of the busiest container ports on the East Coast, and Newark Liberty International Airport, a major international air hub. And we're talking about a city that's 8 miles from New York City, where Mamdani is going to take over. And he's literally talking about making government controlled grocery stores. And here we have a container port in Newark. You think if these guys take over our governmental positions that they can't stop our trade? We're already having supply chain problems. They're going to make this worse. This infrastructure is a critical component of national commerce and requires robust security. Economic importance. Newark is a critical economic engine for New Jersey and the broader New York metropolitan area. Its port, airport, and extensive rail connections make it a major center for trade and logistics. Financial services, healthcare, and insurance are also significant sectors. The development of the port and its role in transportation have been central to the city's economic history. Newark's religious landscape is diverse. See, all of these cities have a diverse religiosity, right? Historically shaped by immigration patterns. Interesting. Its population includes large Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish communities with churches, mosques, and temples reflecting its multicultural history. Despite its transportation strengths, Newark has historically struggled with high poverty rates and urban challenges, making parts of its economies susceptible to broader economic downturns. The city's critical transportation infrastructure is a potential high-value target for security threats and is vulnerable to disruption from natural disasters. Well, that's not the only thing it's vulnerable to. It's vulnerable to radical jihadist Islamic Muslim takeover. Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen. let's see. I want to pull up. Philadelphia has a mayor none other than Cheryl Parker. And she herself was endorsed by Muslims. Let's check this out. Philadelphia, Engage PAC Pennsylvania, which is a PAC, Political Action Committee, will join other Muslim leaders and elected officials at the Muslim for Parker press conference in support of Cheryl Parker. Engage PAC Pennsylvania endorsed Cheryl Parker for mayor in Philadelphia in April 23. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a Muslim sympathizer as mayor in Philadelphia, another strategic city of the 5 that I think are very important. We don't have to read all of that. I just wanted to prove to you that these Muslim sympathizers or direct Muslims are taking over our cities, right? So, Revolutionary War, Philadelphia is connected there. Known as the birthplace of America, Philadelphia was the most important city during the Revolution. It hosted the first and second Continental Congresses and was the first capital of the United States. Can you say takeover? This is what they're trying to do. Why do I got this up in the corner? I'm going to ignore that. I don't know what that's all about. Here, let me shut this off. Weird. Okay. And was the first capital of the United States. Its occupation by the British in 1777 was a significant strategic setback for the Patriots. Today, Philadelphia's military significance includes installations like the Naval Surface Warfare Center, ensuring its role in national defense and naval operations. What? So what if they take over that in collaboration? Economic importance. As the largest city in the colonies, Philadelphia was a major commercial center leading in trade and manufacturing. Philadelphia's economy is diverse with major sectors including finance, healthcare, biotechnology, and technology. The Port of Philadelphia is one of the busiest freshwater ports in the world. Religious importance. Founded by William Penn as a Quaker colony with a policy of religious freedom. I believe Quakers were a Christian sect, right? So we have a strong Judeo-Christian history in the United States, right? If we hand these cities and states over to Muslims, that goes bye-bye. Philadelphia became a sanctuary for various religious groups. This legacy of tolerance is a core part of the city's identity. Philadelphia faces challenges with persistent poverty and employment lag compared to other cities. The city, like many large urban centers, has been impacted by crime and issues related to income inequality. So that's city number 4. So number 5 is Stamford, Connecticut. And the mayor there is none other than Caroline Simmons. So let me share this screenshot with you that I took today in research. Mayor Simmons releases a statement on anti-Muslim hate speech incident. Acts of hate have no place in our city, and I condemn the despicable anti-Muslim hate speech that was directed at members of our Muslim community. Stamford's strength comes from our diversity, and we will not tolerate behavior that seeks to divide or intimidate. So we have another Muslim simp. This is a white woman holding our mayoral seat in Stamford, Connecticut. And she says here that she releases that statement because of the incident that happened back in August 9th of this year. So again, advocates for Muslim takeover. Strategic and military importance of Stamford. During the American Revolution, Stamford was a strategic location along the coast with a legacy of local resistance against British forces. Stanford's strategic importance is less military and more tied to its role as a key corporate hub and extension of the New York City financial sector. The stability of its economy is vital to the national economy, and attacks targeting its corporate, financial, or data infrastructure could have national implications. So what was I saying? Asymmetric warfare, cyber attacks, there's a hub for that. Religious importance, they have none. And their vulnerabilities. Stanford's economy is tied to the financial and corporate sectors, making it susceptible to, where was I at here? Susceptible to market fluctuations and economic downturns. A corporate exodus would be a significant blow to the city's economy. Cybersecurity. As a center for major corporations, Stanford is a prime target for cyber attacks which could disrupt national financial markets. Located on the Long Island Sound, the city is vulnerable to coastal flooding and storm surges. So as you see, ladies and gentlemen, I think these 5 strategic cities over in the East Coast of the United States have already been significantly taken over by Muslim belief systems in our cities, and New York City is next. So, and I tied in that I think that Trump can do exactly what is written out in the Word of God of what David did. And you see that David conducted raids from inside the city to overtake these strongholds. But he did it by deception. I don't think Trump has to do that. He just has to continue to find ways to bring in forces to overturn this. But in the meanwhile, what do we do as a church? And let me be the first to say, as a Christian, because I believe it's the place of the church, just like what happened in Germany and what happened to the French in the days of the brown shirts, that the church is who needs to stand up. In fact, I've been meaning to watch the movie Bonhoeffer that just came out a few months ago, actually earlier this year, I believe. I still haven't watched it yet, but he was part of the church. He stood up against the Hitler regime, right? And I think that's something we need to do as Christians here in America. We need to get a louder voice as Christians. And I think strategically, one of the things we can do without being in a vulnerable spot because of our belief system, legally, we can get involved by doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters of the church, get involved. If you want to, you can always become an ICE member. They're giving $50,000 incentives to join. And now we have the NGRF, National Guard Reaction Force, because they're about to be deployed federally all over the United States. And if you want to get involved legally to put a stop to this tyranny in our nation, I think this is one of the ways we can do it. And if you don't believe that this stuff is happening pretty significantly with Muslims trying to take over, check out what happened in DC. And this clip here is directly from Laurel Loomer, captured this on our own Capitol grounds. Check this out. Muslim lobbyists in DC heading from the Capitol building to the Senate chambers. And as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Galib,
I'm with you guys. I don't like these people
from
either.
Michigan,
Oh, no,
was
I'm
in
leaving.
the
I'm
Senate
leaving. I'm
today
leaving.
for a
I'm just
confirmation
documenting
hearing.
it all.
And he's being advocated for as an ambassador to the Middle East. But he would not condemn radical Hamas over in the Middle East. He wouldn't condemn them for what they're doing. What does that tell you? Well, look at all of these Muslims on our Capitol grounds. There's more than you know. Wow, that's pretty eye-opening there to what's going on in our United States. Pretty severe. But ladies and gentlemen, we are not training to be rescued. We're training to rule. So unless you get directly involved, even us as Christians, this is what we need to do. Not just speaking up, but confronting. We need to be like David. We need to come alongside Trump as our King David. I mean, he's not literally a king, but he needs our help from us in the church. Right? It's pretty sickening to see what's going on. But I wanted to draw these parallels for you today. It was pretty interesting to me. God literally told me, the Holy Spirit kept saying, this is like the days of King Saul. And he kept saying it, and he kept saying it. And I finally looked into it today, and I was like, oh my goodness. All the parallels of what's going on right now. Pretty intense. But that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we draw the red line against this world system, the red line in your life and the red line in your mind. Share this out. It's super important. I'm going to tag some important people in this today because I think there's some major prophetic insight here. And I think we can gain access through alignment with the Word of God. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you guys next time on Red Line Live. Thank you very much.